Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're journeying back in time to explore the life of a man who, in just over a decade, forged one of the largest empires the world has ever seen. A man whose name echoes through history as the very definition of a conqueror, a king, and a legend. This is the story of Alexander the Great. Born in 356 BCE in Pella, the capital of Macedon, Alexander was no ordinary prince. His father was the formidable King Philip II, a brilliant military strategist who had transformed Macedon into a military power. His mother was the passionate and devout Queen Olympias. From the very beginning, it seemed destiny had grand plans for him. But perhaps the most significant influence on his young mind came from his tutor, the one and only Aristotle. For 3 years, the greatest philosopher of the age taught the future king, instilling in him a profound love for science, philosophy, and Greek culture. This education wasn't just academic. It shaped the very vision Alexander would later impose upon the world. In 336 BCE, tragedy struck. King Philip II was assassinated, and at the tender age of 20, Alexander ascended to the throne. Many saw a young, inexperienced ruler and thought it was their chance to rebel. They were mistaken. Alexander knew how things be, crushing revolts in Greece and securing his father's kingdom. With his home base solidified, he turned his eyes to the east, towards the dream his father had never realized: the conquest of the Persian Empire. In 334 BCE, Alexander crossed the Hellespont into Asia with an army of about 40,000 men. It was a bold, almost reckless move against an empire that spanned 3 continents and commanded vast resources. His first major test came at the Battle of the Granicus, where he led a cavalry charge straight across the river and into the enemy lines, securing a stunning victory. This set the tone for his entire campaign: audacious, swift, and utterly relentless. The following year, in 333 BCE, he faced the Persian king Darius III himself at the Battle of Issus. The Persian army massively outnumbered the Macedonians. The battlefield was a narrow coastal plain, which Alexander used to his advantage, preventing the Persians from deploying their full strength. He identified Darius's position and led a decisive charge directly at him. Terrified, Darius fled the battlefield, leaving his family, his mother, wife, and children to be captured by Alexander. In a gesture of magnanimity that became legendary, Alexander treated them with the utmost respect, as royalty. This victory was a turning point. It shattered the myth of Persian invincibility and handed Alexander control of Anatolia. From there, he marched south along the Mediterranean coast. He faced incredible resistance at the island city of Tyre, which he besieged for 7 long months, eventually building a causeway from the mainland to the island to breach its walls. Then he entered Egypt. The Egyptians, who had long resented Persian rule, welcomed him not as a conqueror, but as a liberator. They crowned him pharaoh and declared him a son of the god Ammon. It was here, in 331 BCE, that he made one of his most lasting contributions. He founded the city of Alexandria. Positioned perfectly on the Nile Delta, it was destined to become the intellectual, cultural, and economic heart of the Hellenistic world for centuries, home to the great library and the famous lighthouse. But the war for Persia was not over. Darius had gathered another immense army, and in late 331 BCE, the two forces met for their final, epic confrontation at the Battle of Gaugamela in modern-day Iraq. Once again, Alexander was heavily outnumbered. Darius had chosen a wide, flat plain to make full use of his cavalry and scythed chariots. It was a tactical masterpiece. Alexander identified a gap in the Persian line, created by his own complex maneuvers, and charged through with his elite companion cavalry, aiming directly for Darius. And once again, Darius fled. The Persian army collapsed, and with it, the Achaemenid Empire, which had dominated the known world for over 2 centuries, ceased to exist. Alexander marched into Babylon, Susa, and Persepolis, the heart of Persia, claiming unimaginable wealth and the title of King of Asia. You might think that after conquering the world's largest empire, a person would stop. But Alexander was different. He was driven by an insatiable curiosity and ambition, a desire to reach the very ends of the earth. He pushed his army further east through lands no Greek had ever seen, into what is now Afghanistan and Central Asia. Then, in 326 BCE, he did the unthinkable. He crossed the Hindu Kush Mountains and invaded India. Here, he faced a new kind of warfare against fierce warriors and terrifying war elephants. At the Battle of the Hydaspes, he fought against King Porus, a formidable Indian ruler. It was one of Alexander's costliest battles, but his tactical genius prevailed once more. He was so impressed by Porus's bravery that he allowed him to keep his kingdom, making him an ally. Alexander wanted to push on, to reach the great river Ganges, but his army, exhausted after 8 years of constant marching and fighting, finally had enough. They mutinied, begging to return home. A reluctant Alexander finally agreed. His journey back was fraught with peril. He split his forces, sending part of his fleet down the Indus River and through the Persian Gulf, while he led the rest of his army on a harrowing march through the brutal Gedrosian desert. Thousands perished from heat and thirst. Finally, in 324 BCE, he returned to the heart of his empire. But the story doesn't end there. Alexander began to plan for the future. He envisioned a new kind of empire, one that would blend Greek and Persian cultures. He encouraged his soldiers to marry Persian women and even held a mass wedding ceremony. He incorporated Persians into his army and administration. This policy of fusion was controversial, but it was visionary. He was planning new campaigns into Arabia and perhaps the West, but these plans would never be realized. In June of 323 BCE, after a prolonged banquet and drinking party in Babylon, Alexander fell ill with a severe fever. For 10 days, he battled the illness, but his strength faded. He grew too weak to speak. When his generals asked him to whom he left his empire, he supposedly whispered, "To the strongest." On June 10th or 11th, Alexander the Great, King of Macedon, Hegemon of Greece, Pharaoh of Egypt, and King of Asia, died. He was just 32 years old. His death left a power vacuum. His vast empire, lacking a clear heir, was torn apart by his ambitious generals in a series of conflicts known as the Wars of the Diadochi. The unified world he had fought so hard to create was shattered into several Hellenistic kingdoms. But Alexander's legacy is so much more than just his conquests. Let's talk about some fascinating facts. In his 15 years of campaigning, he never lost a single battle. His strategies are still studied in military academies worldwide. He was a problem solver in every sense. Confronted with the legendary Gordian knot, an intricate knot with a prophecy that whoever untied it would rule Asia, he simply drew his sword and sliced it in half. He was also a city builder. He founded over 70 cities, most named Alexandria. But he even founded one city, Bucephala, in honor of his beloved horse, Bucephalus, who died after the Battle of the Hydaspes. It shows a personal, sentimental side to this fearsome warrior. And even in death, his story is incredible. To preserve his body for the long journey from Babylon, it was reportedly placed in a sarcophagus filled with honey, known for its antibacterial properties. Alexander the Great remains a figure of immense fascination. A brilliant general, a visionary ruler, a man of profound contradictions. He spread Greek culture across the known world, kicking off the Hellenistic age, a period of incredible intellectual and artistic achievement. He reshaped the map of the ancient world in a way no one has before or since. Was he a civilizing hero or a ruthless conqueror? The debate continues to this day. But one thing is certain: His impact on history is undeniable. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the life of Alexander the Great. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next historical adventure. Let me know in the comments what you think is Alexander's most incredible achievement. Until next time.